Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a beautiful looking semi-naked rustic wedding cake topped with a gorgeous arrangement of fresh flowers. If you're new to my channel, welcome and thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all my creative cakes. But for now, let's get started. So I have here my cakes which I've already stacked and filled with my ganache filling. And before I start any cake, I always like to check the level of my cakes to make sure they're nice and straight to avoid any heartache at the end. Now, to create a semi-naked cake, it's basically a cake that's kind of unfinished, so without any fondant or frosting on the top of it. So it's sort of like the underneath layer of the cake which you normally wouldn't see. It's actually becoming quite a trend in the wedding industry, and lots of people are starting to use it for special celebration cakes as well. So basically all I need to do is coat the outer edges of my cake with my choice of covering, and today I'm using my white chocolate ganache. I'll leave a link to my white chocolate ganache recipe in the description box below. And basically when you cover the cake, you do want to be able to see the cake underneath. I like to make sure that all the cake is covered to keep in the moisture and avoid the cake drying out. Now, while it's a rustic cake, and rustic of course does mean a bit rough on the edges, I don't mean a messy cake. So I still want to get a nice clean finish on the cake, but I'm not going to be too worried about getting a perfectly smooth layer of ganache. Once I'm happy with the coating of my cake, I can transfer it onto my cake presentation board, just using a little bit more ganache to stick the cake to the board. Once I've centered the cake nicely on the board, I need to go back with a little bit more of my ganache to make sure that it goes all the way to the bottom and seals the very bottom edge. And after a quick little cleanup of the board, I can put this tier of my cake aside while I work on the top tier. So basically all I'm going to be doing for this top tier of cake is exactly the same, covering it lightly but neatly at the same time. Now I've got my cakes off to a side, and here I've got quite a few lengths of cake wire as well as some flower tape in a brown shade. And what I wanted to create was a twig or type of twine that I could twist around my cake. So what I need to do is hold a length of wire in one hand, and with a length of the brown flower tape, I'm just going to basically twist it around the length of the wire. Now one side of this tape is a bit sticky and adhesive, so it automatically sticks to the wire as I twist all the way down. So I'm going to go ahead and create quite a few of these. Once I've got all my lengths of wire ready, I'm going to start twisting them and joining them to create a twisted type of twine that I can wrap around my cake and make it look as realistic as possible. So once I'm finished, I've got my two circles of twine, one for my top tier and one for around the base of the bottom tier. You can see that both of them have a natural look, they're not identical, and they look quite rustic. At this point, before I start stacking my cakes, I need to make sure that I reinforce the bottom tier with some wooden dowels so that it supports the weight of the top tier of cake without getting squashed underneath. So what I'm going to do is insert my 4 wooden dowels into the cake, and then using a black edible marker, I'm going to make a little line on the dowel of where I need to cut it, and then I'm just going to use an ordinary bread knife. You could use a hacksaw if you have one handy to cut the dowel to the exact size, giving it a little file with a little sandpaper block that I just use for cakes, and making sure to wipe off any residue with a nice wet damp paper towel and then reinsert it back into the cake. So I need to repeat this process for all of my 4 wooden dowels. Then to attach the top tier of cake, I'm just going to apply another little bit of white chocolate ganache to act as my glue, position my top tier onto the cake, and then go back around the top tier of cake with some more chocolate ganache to seal in the join at the bottom. Now I can add my imitation twine pieces to my cake. I'm just going to place it around the cake and then just twist the ends together. Another little trick you might like to try is by twisting some of the pieces of wire at the ends around a wooden dowel, and it gives it a kind of a vine look as well. Over here I'm just going to pull apart the pieces of wire, and as you can see it's sitting nice and loose around my cake, so before this cake is cut it can easily be lifted straight off the top of the cake. I'll just add the wire to the bottom tier of cake, which is going to be resting on my cake board, and I'll twirl a few little bits and separate some of the other parts of the wire to bring it to life a bit more. You can keep manipulating this wire until you get an effect that you're happy with. Now I'm going to start adding my fresh flowers to the cake, and I'm going to add a little posy to the side of the bottom tier of cake. So once I'm happy with the little arrangement of flowers, I'll tightly wrap all the stems together using a length of the flower tape and trim off the excess stems. And then I'm going to poke them into this little plastic flower pick. You can pick these up from a florist or even cake stores. And this is going to protect the cake from any contamination against the stems. So I'll just position it at the bottom of my cake. And then for my cake topper, I've got a nice big ball of white fondant, and I'll just start inserting my flowers into the fondant. The fondant's going to protect the cake from being touched from the stems of the flowers. And I'll just keep adding my flowers to the top of the cake, always making sure that my bouquet is balanced. For this particular cake, I'm after a nice top-heavy flower arrangement. So guys, I hope you saw just how easy it is to create quite a stunning looking cake. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed my tutorial, and if you decide to create one of these cakes on your own, I'd love to see it, so drop me a line in the comment section below or connect with me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram and Twitter. Remember that if you're not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button and make sure you turn those notifications on so that you'll be alerted each time I release one of my videos. If you'd like to take your cakes a little bit further, you might be interested in checking out my 2 videos which I've left links to below on the art of covering a cake with ganache and also covering your cake perfectly with fondant. I'm sure you'll find lots of useful tips and tricks to make your cakes stunning each and every time. I hope you tune in next time, and as always, thanks for watching.